Okay. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulil kareem, amma ba'd. Today we are going to talk about the phases in development of Islamic economic thought. Basically, we discussed this last time. I think when I show you this figure, the the history of Islamic economic thought, I think from this picture you can understand that there is a Quran and Sunnah, and then there is a juridical economic thought, which started in the formation period. You can see that formation period, for example, you have Abu Yusuf, Abu Ubaid, Imam Muhammad Shaybani, then you have Yahya bin Adam al-Qurashi. So these are the few scholars. There are many, we just to name to you a few things. Then this is called formation period. Started 630 to 855. Again, these are the phases according to some historians. You may also see some differences, because you see when historians talk about it, not necessarily everyone should have the same sort of phases that they want to identify. There is a possibility, there are few differences. It's not going to be like a huge difference. The timeline, for example, you see he mentioned 855. And then he mentioned until 1100, it is called innovation and translation and adaptation period. So this is according to al-Islahi. Maybe someone may have some of these phases available, some of them is not available. Then you have the transmission period starting from 1100 to 1500. Then you have the imitation and stagnation period. Of course, this one we agree, 1500 to 1785. Then you have the awakening and re-establishing effort, 1785 to 1930. Then starting from the second quarter of the 20th century, like 1930 onwards, we have this modern discipline called Islamic economics. That's what we are learning and teaching today. All right, so let us go one by one. The formation period. So this is the here we are actually talking about the formation, which means the revealed knowledge of Quran and Sunnah. Because when we talk about the economics in formation period, it is not something that we are talking about the external influence in economics. This is totally, when we talk about the formation period, it is totally the internal sources, because we are talking about Quran and Sunnah most of the time. Because the formation period, we only had Quran, like Prophet ﷺ had it, and then he left, and then the Khalifa the first one and the second one, they actually started compiling Quran, and then later, after few years, after few decades only, they started compiling Sunnah. So if you look into the formation period, that what we call whether it is until 811, or some other historians call until 718, someone calls 718, they consider that these are whatever the economic thought that we have during this period is based on the internal sources. It is not like external sources like Greek, for example, because the Greek idea comes and then they started writing. No, because if you look into Imam Abu Yusuf's writing or Imam Shaybani's writing, you won't see any Greek ideology comes in. The Greek ideology all came later in the translation period. Right? Okay. So that to keep it in mind. So now we have this discipline called Usul al-Fiqh. We have fiqh, then Usul al-Fiqh, and then the reason why usul fiqh emerged. What is the emergence of the usul fiqh? Because of the methods of reasoning. There is a need to regulate these methods, because we had so many methods of reasoning, and the scholars, they saw that it has to be compiled, and then it has to be recorded, and then it has to be monitored and regulated. So we have started from ijma, we have qiyas, the analogy, and then we have istihsan, and then we have maslaha mursala, which we call public interest. We have saddu daraya, which means blocking the means. We have also al-istihsan, juristic preference. We also have the al-istishab, which is the maintaining the status quo. So look, all this, the reasoning method, the methods of usul al-fiqh, is actually helping everyone to understand the economic related issues. Because when it comes to mu'amalat, when it comes to kitab al-buyu' means transactions, business. When it comes to management, when it comes to in fact, even when it comes to siyasa, as I told you earlier, politics and economics is actually is one body. That's why Aristotle started writing politics, because it's a one body. It is very difficult to divide into, distinguish into something, but later it was considered as a different discipline, but it was one. So in usul al-fiqh, as I told you, the reasoning, the methods of reasoning allow you to expand and finding new answers to new issues. That is the most important reason why there is usul al-fiqh, because every single decade, every single year, actually every single time, there is a new issues coming, and then we need to look into new answers, right? So that's because you have to extend the Sharia up to everyone, up to all the time. You have to extend it until the day of the judgment. You have to make your Sharia alive. That is the because any Muslim would do that. Any Muslim cannot actually simply ignore the fact that cannot ignore that the Sharia is not applicable today. What if I live in countries like where there is no sunlight, where there is no long day? So what should I do if there is a long day? Should I do fasting? Where there is no sunlight, should I do praying? Yeah. If I'm flying in the aeroplane, on what basis should I pray? So when it comes to ibadah, there are so many questions like this. When it comes to mu'amalat, of course, this is the part actually most of us, we didn't think. We always think Sharia for ibadah only. This is the misunderstanding. When it comes to ibadah, we only think, okay, we need to ask this: is it okay or not? Is it halal or is it haram? Is it correct or not correct? But when it comes to transaction, this is actually, we are talking about mal, we are talking about mu'amalat. We actually not giving the priority of following the Sharia in mu'amalat, in transactions. This is where actually we are getting all sort of things, because when Allah said ahallallahu al-bay'a wa harrama al-riba, it's not only that we need to keep on saying that riba is haram. We need to also understand why Allah said ahallallahu al-bay'a. He said that trade is permissible, permitted. So what are the ways how those bay' is halal? What are the dimensions of trade that you can actually bring into existence so that you can make this halal? So these are the thinking process, progress, and then it came into something. So the scholars like Zaid bin Ali, Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Shafi'i, Ahmad ibn Hanbal. These are the scholars in Usul al-Fiqh. They started developing the discipline called Usul al-Fiqh to get, understand, or to develop the economic related matters, right? Then you have the scholars like after these people, after these four imam, then you have scholars like Imam Abu Yusuf, who wrote Kitab al-Kharaj, the taxes. Then you have Imam Muhammad Shaybani, who wrote Kitab al-Kasb, right? Then you have Yahya bin Adam, who wrote again, he compiled the hadith on taxes. Then we have Imam Abu Ubaid, who wrote actually Kitab al-Amwal. Then we have Ibn Abi Dunya, who wrote Islah al-Mal. And then we have Abu Bakr al-Khalal, who wrote actually on business and economic activities in general. So these are the ideas, or you can see it. So these are the books, like for example, this is all actually necessary on that time. And then it was needed. In fact, when I'm going to talk to you about Imam Abu Yusuf, I will be telling you why Imam Abu Yusuf wrote that book. What made him to write book on taxes. So then you will understand that was the need. So when there is a demand, of course, there is a supply, right? Okay, then these are the books are available in the formation period. Then you have some incomplete list of ideas. If you look into the books of the formation period, I think you will be looking into something. They talk about market and regulations. Someone talk about supply and demand. Someone talk about price fixing. Someone talk about money, monetary values, monetary analysis. Someone talk about credit instruments, interest, commodity exchange, of course, taxation, public finance. Even someone talk about fiscal policy, and then agricultural relations, inheritance, zakah, all these things are there, but it is not completed. It is not actually, when you look into books, these ideas will come and go. All right, that is what actually the formation period. Then you have the translation period. In the translation period, I would love to start from, of course, the period start from 8. Starting from 8 until according to our timeline is different. According to our timeline, the translation starts when? Okay, it starts from it's actually within that 855 to 11th century, right? Yeah, okay, good. So now you have this translation period. I would love to start from the word diwan, because we call in Malay is dewan, right? For example, if you call the hall, you call dewan, dewan pustaka. There are so many dewans, we call it. But in the original word is actually diwan. This word diwan is actually a Persian word for a registerer. Those days in Persia, in Persian language, they remain in Iran, Iraq, Syria. These words diwan was used. It was popularly used until the Malik Abdul Malik bin Marwan. So this Abdul Malik bin Marwan is one of the Umayyad Khalifa. I think I have to also give you some historical chronicles of these Muslim rulers. Even I will give you some slide later. So I just want to give you this. So you have these 4 Khulafa ar-Rashidin, then the Umayyah, they started coming in. Then you have the Abbasid, and then you have later. So there is also this Umayyah and Abbasid. Also, again, it's not like one after another. Actually, while Umayyah were in ruling, the Abbasid already came in, right? So in some part of the world, Umayyah were ruling. In some other part of the world, actually Abbasi were fighting with Umayyah and taking the places. And then it's not only Abbasid, there are so many other let's say Hashemite Fatimide. There are so many, because when we are going to talk about the scholars, inshallah, we will be discussing about their background, in which ruling they were, in which dynasty they were ruling it. So we will be giving you some heads up later, inshallah. So I wanted to start with the word Diwan, because Diwan was there until Abdul Malik bin Marwan. All right. Then you have Khalid. Yes, the Khalid bin Yazid. Actually, he is the one who started systematically. He started the translation. This Khalid bin Yazid, he actually even sent for scholars from India, from Iran, from Rome, from Greece. So this Khalid is actually during the Abbasid period. During the Abbasid period, there was a house, there was an institute, it is called Bayt al-Hikmah. During Abbasid period, there was a full-fledged Bayt al-Hikmah, which means that the Bayt al-Hikmah Institute will provide the translation of an adaptation of the Persian, Indian, and Greek scientific works. So this is where actually you will see until 11th century, you will see there were many translated works available in areas of medicine, astronomy, art, and philosophy, including the management of the state, including the management of the economy. So this is where actually you have the translation period. Yeah. We have so many books based on that. Okay, here it is, the translation period. Yeah. So you have this, yes, the Abbasid rule. You have the political reality of the disintegration of the central Abbasid rule, the division of the Islamic Empire into regional powers. Yeah. Okay. Here you have the, okay. Then you have again the same thing goes to, a retranslation phase. This one actually started from, because there was, you see, we are here talking about the translation. Here we are talking about the Bayt al-Hikmah. Here we are actually talking about, scholars from India, scholars from, Persia, Rome, and Greece. Definitely, when this translated work comes, into discussion among the scholars, then there is always debate. This is actually exactly what happened. It created the impact. It created the impact of what we call it the third phase, which is actually the retranslation phase, which is why we call impact of the translation on Muslim scholars, whereby you have the Greco-Arab Islamic ideas. What happened exactly? There were few group of scholars came in. What I mean by that, starting from this period, you will see, like, with regard to for them it's like alien ideas. For example, when it comes to Greek ideas, they say, okay, they debate, for example, should we take these ideas into our belief system, into our discussion or not? Should we emerge this discussion into our discussion? Should we synthesize it? Should we synchronize it? Or should we throw it at once? Or should we take it and then make it perfect? So these are the things, these are the period actually starting from, this after 11th century to 15th century. These are the things actually, where in position. Now let me give you 5 groups of scholars during the retranslation phase. Okay, The first group of the scholars, those are the one who rejected the entire Greek ideas. They say, no, these Greek ideas all together, we don't need it, because we have Quran and Sunnah. We have our scholars of fiqh and usul al-fiqh. So we have the writings. There are many writings in aqidah, in tasawwuf and everything. So this is all good enough for us. So you don't have to bring this Greek idea. So who are they? Most probably they used to be called muhaddithun, or you can say traditionalist. Most of the muhaddithun, they were, into this thought that they wanted to reject the entire, because they didn't want to go into problems, they didn't want to test it, they didn't want to open the idea. To specifically saying, to be specific, scholars like Al-Kinani, Al-Farra, and Al-Sarkhasi. So these are the scholars who actually completely rejected the Greek ideas. Then let me give you the second group. The second group, the one who are actually tried to distinguish between the ideas that are beneficial and also acceptable. Because when they look into Greek ideas, they actually studied the ideas. They look into those ideas, because you see, I told you the translation has been done before this phase. So now they are looking into those ideas, and then they wanted to read and study, and then they say, okay, they wanted to see, okay, these are the good ideas. These are the ideas that are beneficial to understand the reality. This is where actually, if you ask me, this is where actually the thought process of Islamization started. This is how they let the foreign ideas to come in, and then they wanted to take whatever is right, whatever is actually acceptable in the realm of Islamic thought and belief. And then they also wanted to throw those contravention, whatever is actually contradictory to the Islamic faith and principles, they don't take that in. All right. So they wanted to always remember this. These people's idea was always wanted to prove the Islamic supremacy. Even though they are actually getting the idea, studying and trying to get the good thing from the alien ideas like Greek philosophy, but their intention was always to prove Islamic supremacy over Greek thought. Yeah, they bring the idea in their debate, but they will be saying this is what the Greek philosophers are saying, but this is what Islam says. So Islam is more clear. Islam is, it's like, opening the debate, bringing the Greek philosophy, and then they say, okay, we do the debates, and at the end of the day, Islam wins. So to prove the Islamic supremacy over the Greek thought. And then if there is a possibility, they try to synthesize it. All right. So in a way, you actually can call them Islamic scholastic scholars. Remember when I talked to you about scholasticism, do you remember? Can you go back to your notes and see what did I mention? Anyone from the class, can you give me what I talked to you about scholasticism? Can you give me a definition of scholasticism? Anyone?
Can I try, sir?
Yes, please, Hannah. Yeah, go ahead.
I think scholasticism is the discipline to synthesize religious beliefs as well as philosophy, I think.
Very good. That's right. So it's like, synthesizing revelation and reasons. Yeah. Philosophy and theology. Am I right? So now look into this group, the second group that I'm talking to you. In a way, they are actually Islamic scholastic scholars. So meaning, because they actually wanted to also synthesize the Islamic theology and the Greek philosophy, but keep this in mind, They always wanted to prove the Islamic supremacy. They always wanted to say, okay, we have done this, good, but at the same time, Islam is superior with above all this philosophy. So they have to be very careful. They are very careful. They are not like, open mind, and then they are not actually asking you to be open mind and then you just go with the philosophy and then just believe in philosophy. They didn't say that. They said you can bring the philosophy for the discussion, but you need to understand. You need to. Then they always, they never forget to prove the Islamic supremacy. So these are the people, we call them mutakallimun. Okay, the first group we call muhaddithun, right? These are the people, we call them scholastic theologians or mutakallimun. These are the scholars, to be more specific, these are the scholars are called Mawardi, and then Imam al-Ghazali, and also Imam al-Razi, Fakhruddin Razi. These are the big, great scholars that actually comes from this group. Okay, group number 3. Group number 3 are the one who actually, are similar to the second one, but they are deeply influenced by Greek ideas. You need to understand the difference, because that's why I'm just giving you this, because there is a lot to learn from this groups, because the second one was actually the one who tried to distinguish between these ideas, and then they take the good philosophy from the Greek, but at the same time they always want to prove the Islamic supremacy. The third group are the one who deeply influenced by the Greek ideas, and then they started interpreting Islamic articles. They started interpreting Islamic articles in such a way, to accommodate the philosophical ideas. So you need to look into these differences, because I'm not here to judge these two groups. I mean, I'm not here to judge any group. I'm just giving you the idea, for you to think, because you also have given the reasoning, the intellect. You can also think about it, whether are you there up to, deeply influenced by some thought, deeply influenced by some scholar, deeply influenced by some art, or deeply influenced by some celebrity, and then you do interpret Islamic articles in such a way to accommodate those philosophy. Okay, these Muslim philosophers called hukama, like these people called hukama, al-Kindi. This is where al-Kindi, there is al-Kindi, and then there is Ibn Sina. I think you know Ibn Sina, and then we have Ibn Haytham, and then we have also some other scholar, Ibn Rushd. There are so many other scholars also in this way. Here we are not here to judge, which one is the right group. No, I think everyone is right. Everyone is right in their own way. All right. If you ask me which mazhab is right, this is the same thing, the same answer. Everyone is good, right in their own way. But this is good for us to learn how they differentiate. These are the people who actually brought the branches of Greek philosophy into ilm al-akhlaq. They brought into ethics. They brought into ilm siyasa. They brought into politics, and then they brought into ilm tadbir. Tadbir is actually tadbir al-manzil, meaning the science of the household management. They brought that idea into household and also to the management of the household. And also they extended this idea to market, price, monetary, supply and demand phenomena. In fact, they went into some extent into macro and microeconomic relations. These are the things these people were able to do. All right. So you need to understand Imam al-Ghazali, there is one, he belongs to one group, and then Ibn Sina and Ibn Haytham is actually Kindi is actually belong to another group. You need to understand also their differences. Okay. Then we have the fourth group. The fourth group is actually, they are Sufis. They are totally Sufis. You can call them tasawwuf, tasawwuf, the spiritual scholars. Some advocating a life of, they say, they wanted to denounce all worldly means. If you look into, I tell you, these scholars also should not be taken, should not be taken. You should not ignore these scholars, because there is a lot to learn from these scholars, because these are the scholars who actually tell you that there are economic matters available, there are economic factors are there, but to what extent it is important, to what extent you have to work hard to make your economic life better. The question they ask, does it worth it? Is it worth to put your entire life to build your economy rather than you build your akhirah? So I just all the time I remember this Quranic verse is just behind me. Actually, I wrote this Quranic verse, one of my favorite Quranic verse. Allah says in Quran, وَابْتَغِي فِيمَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ. وَابْتَغِي فِيمَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ. Allah says in Quran, you have to find, seek the life to come. Seek the life to come by means of what God has granted you. Whatever that Allah has given you, use that thing to seek the life in akhirah. So this is amazing, this is, so according to this, these are the group Sufi Tasawwuf. You have scholars like Muhasibi and Junaid al-Baghdadi. You have even this Muhasibi, he has a very good work, actually, very good book actually he wrote, Muhasibi. He talks about al-Wara. There is one book called Kitab al-Kasb wal-Wara. Yeah. He talks about, even we have al-Jilani, we have al-Suhrawardi. So these are the group talks about Sufi, Tasawwuf, and then they've given you the idea. Even I think in a way, if you look into the book like Kitab al-Kasb written by Imam Shaybani, Muhammad Shaybani, you will be looking into, so many advices, because we happen to, this book Kitab al-Kasb, actually it's not in our course outline. Alhamdulillah, what happened actually last semester, we had a small group like of 5 to 6 to 7 people we arranged, and we had it face to face and also online. We actually read the entire book. So we read the entire book. Alhamdulillah, we managed to finish the book. It's a lot to learn about that book. The book talks about so many things, including how do you save something for the next generation. What exactly you're supposed to do in this world so that actually you get reward for the next life. You can actually practice, you can actually involve in economic transaction. At the same time, how do you convert each and every economic transaction not only to get a reward in this world, also to get a reward in the next life? How do you convert it? So these are the amazing points that Imam Shaybani talks about it. So I think it all comes under the fourth group. The fifth group, you have the one who combine the practical experiences of business and also the Islamic tradition. This is the fifth group. This is actually there is a scholar called al-Dimashqi. This book also is not in our course outline. I would love to read this book if I have the opportunity for maybe some small group. If you are interested to become the small group, we can actually have this kind of what we call it reading Islamic text, which means that we are going to read the original book. All right. So if you are interested, just direct message me, inshallah. If you can message me, then inshallah we will form this group and then we can read, maybe weekly once or maybe twice a month. We can do that. So this book is called Al-Ishara ila Mahasin at-Tijara. Look at the name. Al-Ishara is the indication ila mahasin at-tijara, to the beauty of business, to the beauty of transactions. So this is also another thing that where he actually combined the practical experience of business and also with Islamic tradition. So this is the fifth group. So I think you have now the translation period and then the retranslation period, right? Then you have this okay, again, yeah, I still have this retranslation period. Yeah, okay. What happened actually, I wanted to tell you this. This is important. You know, this retranslation period, this is where actually uh, um, things went to middle age. I want to give you this. Like I told you just now, there were 5 different groups of people working in this retranslation period, and so many discussions has been done. uh, Muslim scholars were not only the translators. Like I told you before, it was not only the translation done, it was actually the discussion together with the translation. Because otherwise, how do we have these 5 different groups? If there is no proper analysis on the Greek philosophy, how will you have these different 5 groups? So that's why, and then look at the group number 2 and group number 3. This group number 2 and group number 3, there's a lot to discuss, because they bring, one group they bring in and then they bring Greek philosophy and then they always prove the Islamic supremacy. The other group, they bring in Greek philosophy and then they try to interpret Islamic tradition, Islamic belief. So which means that there are lots and lots actually has been written, so it has been in the discussion. All right, okay. Now when actually this translation happened from Greek to Arabic, then from here we need to understand how these Arabic books were translated into, this is what we call the retranslation phase. How these Arabic books has been translated into other languages, and then how those translated works went to Middle Ages. And then you know the story of the Middle Ages. From the Middle Ages, you have the Catholic or Christians, and then who actually became the scholastic scholars, scholasticism, all those Saint Augustine and all, everybody. Before that, it went to Middle Ages. So how it went? So this is how it went. Let me give you this one. The one I told you just now, the transmission of the Greek economics, is actually the joint work of Christians, Muslims, and Jews. Because when it comes to translation, mostly Christians and Jews, you need to know this. Today also it is true. If you go to a country like Egypt, you will see many Arabs speak very good Arabic, but they are not Muslims. I think you have seen some maybe. They speak very good Arabic. You go to Egypt, you go to Lebanon, you will find Arabs speaks Arabic, but they are not Muslims. So if that is the case today, what about those days? So there were so many Jews, there were so many Christians who can speak Arabic fluently. So these are the people actually who are the one who actually translated those Arabic, those from Greek to Arabic, then from Arabic to other European languages. For example, you know, in 12th century, the Arabic and the Greek work been translated into Castilian Catalan. This is the language, Castilian Catalan, and Langue d'Oc. They call it Lang, Langue, then D-O-C. This is the languages. In 13th century, these are the work from Castilian Catalan and Langue d'Oc has been rendered into Latin languages. So you have Arabic, you have from Greek into Arabic. When it was Greek to Arabic, it was not only the translation. You need to understand this. Greek philosophy into Arabic, and then in Arabic it was actually full of analysis, findings and discussions and all kind of debate. Then it it been converted into other languages, mostly into Latin. Then you will see most of the Arabic text that available in astronomy, mathematics, medicines, kalam and philosophy, everything has been translated into Latin languages. So now you can understand the question that I asked earlier last time in the class. I asked how scholastic scholars like Thomas Augustine and all, how these saints, the scholastic scholars, were able to understand Greek, because they don't know the Greek language. And then these scholastic scholars, they don't even know the language of Injil. They don't know the language of Injil. Also, they also don't know the language of Arabic. So what languages they know? They know Latin. They learn from Latin. And then the Latin was already there because most of the Arabic work has been translated into Latin by Christians and Jews, Arabic speakers. All right. That's the reason why you can see that most of the work like Ibn Rushd, we call him Ibn Rushd, but they call him Averroes. We call someone by the name of Ibn Sina and they call them Avicenna, Al-Khwarizmi or Algebra. And these are so many scientific, so scientific scholars' names and everything. Only few names are quite famous, like Averroes and Avicenna, because they have in philosophy Averroes and then they have medicines Avicenna. But there are so many other hundreds and hundreds of scholars which their names were not mentioned. All right. So now you will understand now how these scholastic scholars in the Middle Ages, they were able to learn all these things, despite that they don't speak Greek or Arabic, but they were able to learn everything from Latin. From Latin, then the remaining is a history, because they know how to translate into other European languages, of course, including when it comes to Adam Smith. Yeah, it was actually the language that he knew, and then they started into writing into all the European languages, and then English was one of the European language, right? Okay, so this is what actually we have. Most of the work has been explored, and historically speaking, there are so many other. I have only given you few details. There are so many details actually available. That's the reason why today you can see that the West, the Western countries, if you notice some dialogues and some speech, they actually refer to Al-Ghazali sometimes. They refer to so many other scholars, Muslim scholars. This is all actually because because you actually can hide the truth, but you cannot hide the entire truth. It has to somehow come out, because maybe there was an agenda, but it didn't happen intentionally. To me, I think it happened. What I mean by that? Maybe they didn't intentionally wanted to hide the Muslim scholars' contribution. It's only because we, as a Muslims, we actually didn't follow that, and we didn't actually, we didn't actually, what we call it, we didn't took, and we didn't open and took into a discussion. We didn't actually follow up. We didn't actually apply. We didn't actually elaborate. We didn't actually develop. We didn't develop it. That's the reason why this is true. When Allah says that, if you are not doing it, then Allah says that He will actually bring another community to do it. So that's what happened. So I think I just want to go back to my earlier theory that I wanted to bring it. The theory is that actually anything that good thing happened or good thing happening right now, good system is there, because you see, man sanna sunnatan hasanatan. Prophet ﷺ said this: if you are bringing a good way of living, good way, sunnah hasana, you will get the reward. The people who follow it also, you will get the reward. So the sunnah hasana is actually the good thing to do, creating new system, creating new way of life, creating new legal system or economic system or political system or environmental system. Yeah. Contributing into science and technology and everything. It started because of the Muslim. It developed because of the Muslim. Today we have those systems because they started it. Again, I also would like to continue and complete my theory, saying that if there is anything wrong happened, if there is anything bad thing happened because of that political system or legal system or economic system, it also belongs to us. It also belongs to Muslims, because the blame, Muslims are the ones should be blamed, because we are the one who didn't continue, who didn't take that responsibility, who didn't follow that destiny, and then we just forgot. That's what actually we have right now here in the next one, which is actually imitation and stagnation phase. In this stagnation phase, actually, most of the time, actually, we've been busy with so many, world things, so many colonizations, and then so many identity crises and everything. That's the reason why actually the bad things are happening, because of our non-continuity in that particular field. So then, okay, then let's go to the imitation stagnation phase, which started until from 15th century until 1932. So you have this, like for example, the scholars like Shah Waliyullah Dehlavi, Mohamed, Akbar. These are the scholars, few scholars in subcontinent, some other countries as well. So these are the people who actually stood up and then wanted to bring back the golden age. So they wrote, mashallah, very good work. I have a work of Shah Waliullah by the name of Hujjatullah al-Baligha, where he actually talk about al-irtifaqat. Nicely done. He talks about the word irtifaq is actually a nice word to say, because which means that you use the source, you use any resource, but you make benefit out of it without harming it. That's the meaning of irtifaq. Look at the meaning. For example, you use a plant, you use cattle, you use the river, take the benefit out of it without polluting it. You use the plants, take the benefit out of it without cutting it. So this is how he used the method of al-irtifaqat. This is something amazing to talk. He also talk about the level of irtifaqat starts from one individual, then the family, then the city, then the country, then the globe. So he talks about that. So that's something amazing. So this is all what happened those period. Like you can see that from 1446 until 1932. These are the period actually. Very few scholars actually stood up, and then they wanted to discuss this. Then we have right now what we have modern phase, 1932. This is the current one. We started with the second quarter of the 20th century, the beginning of the Islamic resurgence, and contributed to the end of the colonial era by the early 60s. the return of the management of the economy to the native hands in the wake of the political independence, focus on the Islamic injunction relevant to economics, writings on the economic philosophy of Islam and the superiority of Islamic economic system over the capitalist and socialist system, the need for an alternative to the unconventional banking and insurance. So this modern phase, where actually you and me available right now, this is actually the most, to me, this is the most challenging part. You know why? Because in order to fill this modern phase, because I know that the people who comes after us, maybe like after 50 years or 100 years, people will come, people will still learn Islamic economics, and then they will talk about us. Of course, they will talk about, there was university that they taught this course and everything, and you were the students and learn and then try to publish and everything. Definitely that's gonna come. The thing will continue. But the problem here actually, um, we cannot survive. We cannot actually fulfill the responsibility of the modern phase without understanding the other phases. We need to understand the other phases. Without understanding, is it okay if I just finish my degree in economics and then I just go and learn Quran and Hadith, and then I just apply everything and then I create a new system, new economic system? The answer is not possible. It will not be possible to create, to support that system until we understand how these things were discussed in different phases. What are the contributions of Muslim scholars? How did they try to solve the problems? How much actually they lose? How much they lost? Actually, there are so many sacrifices they have done. And then the question comes whether to start the new economic system or following the same old system. These are the things that still debatable. Let's say if I ask you Islamic economics, is it a school of economics or is it a new system in economics, or is it a new window in conventional economics? So these are the things like still in debates. You can also have some debates. What you can also bring. So we have Hana here, and also some other members that who are interested in debating. So you can actually bring these debates to think which way you actually which way actually you want to present Islamic economics. Is it as a school of thought or as a new system? Okay, whatever the debate goes, whatever the debate is, still there is a need of learning things from the beginning, at least to know the history, because we are learning this not because just to learn some history book. This is actually we want to learn because the method. So this is a big problem today in Islamic economics. We don't have the proper methodology. And I tell you, if we keep on looking, if we keep on studying, inshallah, which we are going to discuss in the first scholar Abu Yusuf, I'm going to show you what was the method that Imam Abu Yusuf used to solve the economic problem. So if we actually can become experts in creating or following that method, today actually we can actually even bring the new system, right? So that's what actually from me today. So inshallah we will be discussing later, maybe in the next class we will be talking about the Islamic economic thinking. Okay, so this is the last one. The Islamic economic thinking will be the last section of this introductory. After this, inshallah, we are going to talk about the scholars one by one. Yeah. Okay, I just